So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. This is another event in the TapJoy Thought Leadership Series. Today, we are looking at the new state of game publishing, or what some people have been calling Publishing 2.0. We've asked some of the best and brightest names in the industry to join us today and give their insight into what game publishing is from their point of view and how the relationship has changed between the developer and the publisher. When you say qualified user, what is that in the developer's eyes?
Some of the publishers are getting so sophisticated with their metrics and their analytics right now, and their telemetry. They can tell you where the user is going to go. They're digging in deeper and deeper than as a developer. Their teams just analyzing the analytics are bigger than most of our developers. And that's what we really, really want, and we expect from them to say, come on, you know what this user is going to do, or you have some idea what the user is going to do. And that's what we mean by qualified users. We want them to mine their knowledge base, really look at their analytics, and give us that qualified user.
The degree to which we, promote a game is very directly tied to whether the developer is taking that advice or, otherwise improving their game. Because it's one thing to say, hey, you should really do this. It's like, hey, you should really do this, and then we'll put you on the homepage, and then we'll, launch a campaign in, 4,500 GameStop retail stores or whatever. And so it's been really effective, and that is most valuable for the 30-person and under studio.
Yeah.
Once you get bigger than that, they tend to be a little bit more sophisticated about their own marketing and so forth. So we try to scale it. We have developers that would love for us to sort of buy keywords and direct people to their game, and there's others that don't want us competing with their destination site, and we try to respect that as well.
So is there a penalty if the developers, obviously you're trying to give them information that you've seen and you think is probably going to help them, but again, if it's not on their priority, is there a penalty if they're not installing your recommendations?
No. Everyone goes out and looks for these great creative games, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's about the stats that the games are able to drive. And so if our guess is that if they're able to implement some of our changes, it'll improve their retention and monetization stats, which ultimately increases the LTV of their players, which ultimately means that we can push it that much harder. If they choose not to because they have other priorities, the way our agreements work, we're not forcing them to do these. I think that's kind of the way that on the console side it used to be done.
Yeah.
Like publishers would say, you have to make this change or else we're not going to greenlight this game. Exactly. Whereas on our side, it's more like, hey, you know what? Based on our experience, this is what we would advise you do. Generally, they're pretty receptive because they do realize that we're coming to the table with a lot of knowledge, and most of them will work down the list.
We've seen a penalty.
Hmm?
We've seen a penalty.
Like,
it's not written.
Yeah.
It's never written, but if you don't listen to these guys, they stop promoting, or they don't promote as much. It's like, listen to them. They're telling you what to do, and as your numbers are going down because the developer knows better or something like that, they're going to just be like, you know what, they're not listening to us, the game is going down, just stop supporting them.
It's just a much more data-driven world than it was when you're trying to get your $200,000 check every so often from a big console publisher, and it's a good thing.
Well, let me flip the question around now. So we're talking about what we give back to the publisher or to the developers. What do you guys expect to be getting from the developers?
One of the things I look for, and I ask my team to look for when they're trying to identify developers to work with, are folks that they feel like they can have an open conversation about not only the content and the game mechanics and the monetization and engagement, but also on some of our platform technology. So GREE does run a platform. We believe that platform empowers developers. We believe that platform is something that helps the entire ecosystem, but that platform has in it technologies, it has ideas, it has directions that we need feedback from our developers on. They use those tools, they benefit from those tools, and sometimes those tools will hurt them if they're not built correctly. So we're very interested in finding not only the great games and the great content. I'm sure you'll hear that from all these panelists that that's a very key component. But for us, it's also important that we believe we can have an open dialogue with the partners, that they're interested in exploring and experimenting with our technology, pushing us to do new things, from a platform provider perspective.
In terms of what we look for in developers and what they can bring to the table, I think the two biggest things are passion for their product, belief that they can make it work, and the team capabilities to iterate quickly. So especially in the social and mobile space, it is about getting a solid game out there, but then tweaking and tuning as you see the stats.
What often happens is I think developers are still kind of scared, and they kind of look back to the older console model, where if you slipped a milestone, if you were behind schedule, you hid that from your publisher at all cost. I would much rather have a complete transparency with my developer. If they need to slip 2 months, I want to know why, and I want to know if it's for a good reason, but I want to work with them on that. I don't want to all of a sudden have the launch date come by and then they're not able to launch because something happened and they're working on it and they'll take care of it right away, but oftentimes they just kind of hide those problems from us.
So there's a lot of developers out there today, I think, are coming from console, coming from PC, moving to mobile, recognizing that mobile is now moving to free-to-play. They're very interested in what it means to be a free-to-play developer, what it means to be a virtual goods-based developer. And oftentimes it does come down to core competencies around live game operations, the ability to iterate quickly, the ability to read, analyze data, make decisions. But oftentimes these developers coming from these older parts, these more traditional parts of the business, don't know what that means or how to do it. So they're coming to Agree and they're asking us, we can bring you great content, we can bring you high production value, we can bring you passion. Can you teach us how to be a developer that runs games with this new live games operations philosophy? So we actually tend to de-emphasize that as a requirement and partner with developers because we believe Agree that's a service that we can provide, that's some knowledge that we can provide to developers.
How has the publisher model changed, and what have we gotten rid of? What have we left behind that may be for the best?
2-year development cycles where you just fire and forget, and you just hope to God that when it goes out there that the public's going to want the game, and just loading up all the features that people just, once it goes live, that people don't want. We're still suffering from that from some of the old school development studios that are trying to deliver mobile games. They're like, well, the first iteration needs to be this big, or the social game needs to be this big, and you're like, you're giving too much away for free. We're still seeing some artifacts of that, but I think that's the biggest thing everyone's leaving behind is, no, you don't want to tell the public, this is the full game. Tell them this is where we're going with it, and then listen from there.
Is milestone payment still the right way to go?
The right way to structure a relationship with a developer is around incentivizing them to hit key metrics, hit key monetization metrics, hit key engagement metrics to unlock more marketing spend. I really think that's the best model that I've seen that I think developers are really happy with. So in other words, milestones to reach beta is not interesting to me. You get there when the game is ready, and the metrics will tell you when the game is ready. It's not going to be based on some arbitrary date that someone comes up with. It's going to be based on core metrics that we've seen because we've seen multiple games launch in an ecosystem. Now, once a developer gets past that point, I think there's triggers that should happen or should occur, we should be looking for around DAU, around retention, around some of the core metrics that are going to drive success of that game. And that's going to say, to me, as someone who's partnering with you, yes, I'm willing to invest additional dollars in this game. And I think, it was said earlier, the notion that there's sort of pre-commits to these contracts, sort of pre-committed marketing dollars. But there's that upside that any one of us here would be willing to add into a game if we're seeing success. So it's more important to focus on that back end than those initial deliverables, in my opinion.
You're working with a number of developers today. Are they able to find publishers that are willing to fund them at concept level?
Concept is tough unless you're a developer that's made hits. It's kind of a weird dichotomy. There's very few developers that have been successful that need money to make their next game. It's kind of it's a weird one. But then you will have the guys that have been doing contract development that have been under contract for publishers, and they just have made hit after hit after hit,